Breaking news at 11, a Russian invasion of Ukraine is underway as troops move in. Right now, there are reports of explosions in several cities as Vladimir Putin issues a stern warning.
These are among the darkest hours for Europe since the end of World War II.
Breaking news right now, Russia has attacked Ukraine, marking the start of a new war in Eastern Europe.
If long-range missiles are going to be applied from Ukraine into Russian territory, it will also mean that they are operated by American experts, military experts. And we will be taking this as a qualitatively new phase of the Western war against Russia.
03:47 hours, somewhere over the Dnipro River, southern Ukraine. The bridge glows faintly in the pre-dawn cold. Concrete and steel spanning nearly 900 meters of dark, fast-moving water. On one side, open steppe. On the other, a city still breathing, still warm with sleeping civilians who have no idea what is rolling toward them. And rolling is exactly the right word. Because right now, on the eastern approach, the ground is shaking. Not from artillery, not from airstrikes, from weight. 63 tons of Russian T-90M main battle tank, multiplied across an entire mechanized assault column, BMP-3 infantry fighting vehicles, 2 S-19 Msta-S self-propelled howitzers, Tiger utility vehicles packed with communications equipment, and at the very front of the formation, one very confident Russian colonel who has just told his staff that by dawn, they will control the western bank. He has made a catastrophic miscalculation. Imagine you are standing on that bridge right now. The pre-dawn mist sits low over the Dnipro, muffling sound, blurring edges. The lead tank's headlights cut through the fog like surgical knives. You can feel the vibration in the railing beneath your hands. 12 vehicles, then 20, then more emerging from the tree line. Headlights and exhaust stacking up like a freight train with armor plating. This is Russia's most feared assault column, a combined arms formation designed not just to cross a river, but to shatter whatever is waiting on the other side. In exactly 60 seconds, none of it will exist. To understand what is about to happen, you need to understand why this column is here and what it represents. For weeks, Ukrainian forces have been conducting a carefully orchestrated fighting withdrawal along the eastern bank, trading ground for time, a classic elastic defense designed to stretch Russian supply lines, exhaust their logistics, and funnel their mechanized forces into predictable corridors. The corridor they chose is this one. The bridge is not a target of opportunity. It is a trap with a concrete foundation and a 900-meter kill zone. Russian military doctrine, specifically the concept of operational maneuver groups inherited from Soviet combined arms theory, places enormous emphasis on momentum. Speed is armor. Speed is survival. A column that stops is a column that dies. The commander of this formation knows this. His orders are to cross at maximum speed, suppress any resistance on the western bank, and exploit the breach before Ukrainian reserves can react. The logic is sound. The intelligence is not. What the Russian colonel received from his reconnaissance elements painted a picture of a lightly defended crossing, a few Ukrainian National Guard positions, some anti-tank obstacles, nothing that a formation of this size and firepower could not overrun in under 4 minutes. His S-300 air defense umbrella is 40 kilometers to the east, theoretically covering his approach. His electronic warfare suite, the Krasukha-4 jamming system mounted on a truck 3 vehicles back in the column, is online and broadcasting. He believes he is invisible. He believes he is protected. He believes he is minutes away from the most significant Russian territorial advance in months. He is none of these things. 1,700 kilometers away, a RQ-4B Global Hawk unmanned aerial vehicle operating at 60,000 feet has been tracking this column for the last 4 hours and 22 It's AN/ZPY-2 multispectral targeting system, capable of imaging ground targets through cloud cover and smoke using synthetic aperture radar, has cataloged every vehicle in the formation, their spacing, their speed, their electronic emissions signatures. The data has been flowing in real time to a NATO intelligence fusion cell, to Ukrainian general staff, and to a small group of operators sitting in front of screens in a hardened command facility whose location we will not describe. At 0341 hours, the Global Hawk's ground exploitation element flagged a pattern of life change. The column, which had been stationary for 6 hours in a forested assembly area, was moving. Not just moving, organizing. Column formation, bridge approach vector, maximum tactical speed. The alert went up the chain in 40 seconds flat. The Ukrainian General Staff authorized fire mission execution at 0344 hours and 17 seconds, which means that by the time the lead T-90M rolled its first track onto the bridge deck, the weapons that would kill it were already in the air. Now, let's talk about those weapons, because this is where the story becomes extraordinary. Ukraine's ability to strike a moving armored column crossing a river at night, precisely, rapidly, and with near total destruction, represents a convergence of capability that would have seemed impossible 5 years ago. It requires 3 things working in perfect harmony: persistent surveillance, rapid targeting, and standoff precision munitions with the range and accuracy to hit vehicles on a moving bridge in pre-dawn darkness. Check, check, and check. The primary strike package is built around AGM-88 HARM anti-radiation missiles, but those are only the first layer, designed to neutralize that Krasukha-4 jamming truck and suppress any radar-guided air defense the column carries. They arrive first. At Mach 2, an AGM-88E with its onboard GPS-aided navigation doesn't need to track a radar emission continuously. It can memorize the last known location and coast to impact even if the emitter goes silent. The jammer truck never had a chance to go silent. At 0340, 6 hours and 58 seconds, the HARM impacts the Krasukha-4 vehicle. The explosion is technically small, a focused warhead designed for electronics destruction, not spectacular fireball. But the effect is immediately catastrophic for the entire column's situational awareness. Every electronic protection that column was relying on just went offline in a single second. The column is now naked. The bridge is exactly 882 meters long, according to Ukrainian military engineering surveys conducted prior to this scenario. The assault column, moving at approximately 25 kilometers per hour in tactical spacing, takes just under 2 minutes to fully commit to the crossing. The lead elements are already past the midpoint when the main strike package arrives. 12 GMLRS rounds, GPS-guided rockets fired from M270 multiple launch rocket systems positioned behind the tree line on the western bank, descend on the bridge in a time-on-target salvo. Time on target means every rocket is fired at a slightly different time, from slightly different ranges and angles, but they are all mathematically programmed to arrive within a 4-second window. 4 seconds. That is less time than it takes to read this sentence aloud. The GMLRS round carries a 90-kilogram unitary warhead with a CEP, circular error probable, of under 5 meters. It does not need to hit a tank directly. A detonation within 10 meters of a T-90M's engine deck will shatter track links, blow road wheels, and likely kill or incapacitate the crew. A direct hit to the turret ring is catastrophic. The bridge deck itself becomes a weapon when it flexes and cracks under multiple simultaneous detonations. Concrete shrapnel moving at hundreds of meters per second, shredding everything in a 40-meter radius. The first 4 rounds arrive on the bridge deck at 0347 hours and 03 seconds. Lead tank, destroyed. Second tank, catastrophic ammunition cook-off. the autoloader carousel feeding a chain of secondary explosions that keep detonating for 40 seconds. BMP-3 immediately behind the lead tank. The concussion wave from the T-90M's ammunition explosion rolls it partially onto its side. The vehicle commander is already gone. Rounds 5 through 8 arrive 2 seconds later. Mid-column, the two S-19 howitzer, 42 tons of self-propelled artillery that represents the column's indirect fire backbone, takes a direct hit to its ammunition storage compartment. The 152mm shells it carries begin cooking off instantaneously. The explosion is visible from 16 kilometers away. It tears a section of the bridge railing completely off and hurls it into the Dnipro. The column cannot move forward. The burning wreckage of the lead vehicles has blocked the bridge deck. It cannot reverse. The vehicles behind are still pushing forward. The communication jamming they relied on now turned against them, as the harm strike has degraded their own internal comms. Chaos, compression, vehicles bunching. Rounds 9 through 12 arrive. 60 seconds after the lead tank rolled onto the bridge, the following is the situation. 9 vehicles destroyed. 4 vehicles combat ineffective from structural damage and crew casualties. 2 vehicles driven off the bridge approached by surviving drivers attempting evasion. And 1 vehicle, a Tiger communications truck, halted on the eastern bank, its occupants abandoning on foot. The Russian colonel's vehicle is confirmed among the destroyed. 63 soldiers entered that bridge crossing. The surviving crews from the 2 vehicles that escaped number 11. The Tiger truck carries 3 more. 14 survivors from a formation of 63. Each of those men had families waiting somewhere. Each of them had been told this crossing was safe. Each of them trusted the intelligence picture their command gave them. That trust was fatal. The bridge itself sustains significant damage to the deck structure in 3 locations, but remains partially standing, a deliberate outcome. Ukrainian engineers had calculated the strike to destroy the column while preserving enough structural integrity to make Russian salvage operations on the bridge visible and targetable for follow-on strikes. The burning hulks of 9 armored vehicles now render the crossing unusable, but on Ukrainian terms, not Russian ones. The trap worked exactly as designed. Within 6 minutes of the strike, Ukrainian forward observers confirmed battle damage assessment via drone. The RQ-4B Global Hawk, still orbiting at altitude, watched the eastern bank as Russian reaction forces began to respond. ABTR-82A platoon moved toward the bridge approach road and stopped when it reached the visible wall of smoke and flame rising from the deck. No attempt to push through. No rescue operation. A clean, cold halt. This is the doctrine lesson embedded in that halt. Russian combined arms formations operating under the Reconnaissance Strike Complex, Razvedivatelno-Udarny Complex, assume that if they can jam enemy sensors and move fast enough, they can survive the targeting cycle. The assumption is that degrading enemy situational awareness creates a window of invulnerability. But when the enemy's situational awareness is provided by an asset at 60,000 feet using synthetic aperture radar through cloud cover, no ground-level jamming system defeats it. The Krasukha-4 is extremely effective against airborne early warning aircraft and certain radar systems operating at lower altitudes. Against a space-adjacent ISR asset using non-cooperative sensing modalities, it is irrelevant. The column was surveilled the entire time it thought it was invisible. And this raises a deeper question, one that Russian planners will be examining with extraordinary urgency in the hours after this strike. If Ukrainian forces can fuse Global Hawk ISR data, GMLRS precision fires, and harm suppression into a 60-second engagement cycle at night against a moving armored formation on a river crossing, then no Russian assembly area within MLRS range is safe. No column is safe. No bridge approach is safe. The targeting cycle just compressed to something Russian doctrine never accounted for. Let us be precise about the engagement timeline, because the precision is itself the message. 0341 hours, 00 seconds. Global Hawk flags column movement. 0341 hours, 40 seconds. Alert reaches Ukrainian General Staff. 0344 hours, 17 seconds. Fire mission authorized. 0344 hours, 45 seconds. MLRS launchers receive targeting data via Link 16 equivalent battlefield network. 0345 hours, 20 seconds. First GMLRS rounds launched. 0345 hours, 22 seconds. AGM-88 HARM launched against Krasukha-4 radar signature. 0346 hours, 58 seconds. HARM impacts jamming vehicle. 0347 hours, 03 seconds. First GMLRS impacts bridge deck. 0347 hours, 07 seconds. Final GMLRS round impacts. 0347 hours, 07 seconds. Engagement complete. Total engagement duration from first round launch to last impact, 1 minute and 45 seconds. Total time from alert to complete column destruction, 6 minutes and 7 seconds. From the moment a Russian intelligence officer failed to flag the Global Hawk's persistent orbit, or more precisely, from the moment Russian air defense assets failed to hold the 60,000-foot altitude band, the outcome of this engagement was mathematically determined. The column's destruction was not a reaction. It was a scheduled event. They drove into a kill box that had been precisely calibrated around them for 4 hours before they moved. What this fictional scenario illustrates is the convergence of 3 warfare trends that are reshaping armored operations in contested environments. First, persistent ISR at altitudes and using sensing modes that ground-based electronic warfare cannot reliably counter. The Global Hawk's combination of electro-optical, infrared, and SAR radar creates a multi-phenomenology tracking picture that survivable jamming would need to defeat simultaneously on all bands, an extraordinarily difficult problem. Second, the compression of the kill chain. The engagement described here, 6 minutes from alert to destruction, represents a targeting cycle speed that fundamentally invalidates the tactical assumption that movement equals protection. Third, precision fires with time-on-target coordination. The GMLRS salvo described, arriving within a 4-second window from multiple launch platforms, concentrates destructive effect in a way that eliminates the possibility of reactive maneuver. There is nowhere to drive in 4 seconds. Combined arms doctrine assumes that speed and combined arms integration can defeat static defensive positions. It says very little about how to survive a precision strike engagement that completes before you can react to its initiation. The 63 men who crossed that bridge were not poorly trained. They were not badly equipped. They were operating a doctrine designed for a different threat environment, one where the enemy could not see them clearly, could not target them quickly, and could not hit them precisely enough to matter. All 3 of those assumptions are now wrong. The broader strategic implication is this: river crossings have always been among the most dangerous tactical maneuvers in combined arms warfare. Military history, from the Rhine to the Yalu to the Dnipro, is written in the blood of forces caught exposed on bridge decks and in river crossing operations. What changes in the modern era is not the fundamental vulnerability, it is the certainty of exploitation. When an adversary possesses persistent overhead surveillance, sub-5-meter precision ground attack munitions, and a targeting cycle measured in minutes rather than hours, every bridge crossing becomes a potential engagement event. The attacker cannot assume that speed alone will carry them through the vulnerable window. The vulnerable window is now visible, predictable, and targetable from the moment assembly operations begin. 4 hours before the column moved, the kill box was already being constructed around them. That is the lesson that any commander planning offensive operations in a modern, contested environment must internalize. Mobility is no longer synonymous with survivability. The assumption that electromagnetic spectrum dominance creates a protective bubble has been shattered by sensors that operate above and around the jamming envelope. And the assumption that a fast-moving column presents a difficult targeting problem has been answered by munitions that can hit a specific vehicle within a 5-meter radius while that vehicle is doing 25 kilometers per hour. Speed without survivability is not an advantage. It is just a faster way to reach the kill zone. The Dnipro Bridge sits silent now in this fictional dawn, burning wreckage reflected in the dark water below, smoke rising straight up in the still air. Somewhere on the eastern bank, 14 survivors are being processed. Somewhere in a Ukrainian command center, analysts are already reviewing the engagement footage, identifying lessons, refining the next targeting package. And somewhere in a Russian headquarters, a commander is trying to explain to his superiors how the most feared assault column in his order of battle was erased in 60 seconds. The answer, when it finally comes, will be uncomfortable. Not because of what the Ukrainians did, but because of what the Russians assumed. That they could see and therefore could not be seen. That they could jam and therefore could not be targeted. That their doctrine, refined across decades of Soviet combined arms theory, would hold against a threat architecture that did not exist when that doctrine was written. Doctrine is a living document, or it is a death warrant. This column carried a death warrant and called it operational orders. Modern warfare does not reward the largest formation, or the heaviest armor, or even the most sophisticated electronic warfare suite in isolation. It rewards integration, the seamless fusion of ISR, targeting, fires, and effects into a kill chain so compressed that the enemy's observe, orient, decide, act loop collapses before it can complete a single cycle. The 60-second destruction of this fictional assault column is not a miracle of technology. It is the product of years of investment in the specific capabilities that close the gaps in the kill chain. Persistent high-altitude surveillance, precision-guided fires with standoff range, and the data networks that bind them together into a coherent weapon system larger than any single platform. When those elements converge, 63 tons of T-90M, the most advanced production tank in Russian service, with its relict explosive reactive armor, its 125mm 2A46 M5 smoothbore cannon, its Kalina fire control system, becomes irrelevant. Not because it is outgunned in a tank versus tank engagement, but because it never gets to have that engagement. It dies on a bridge deck before anyone can return fire. That is the defining reality of precision warfare in the 21st century. The battle you thought you were going to fight is not the battle you get. The battle you get is the one your enemy designed for you, using your own movement patterns as the targeting solution. The colonel understood armor. He understood maneuver. He understood combined arms theory going back to Tukhachevsky and the operational art of the Soviet deep battle concept. What he did not understand, what cost him everything, was that understanding the weapons of the last war is insufficient preparation for the targeting systems of this one. Final assessment of this fictional engagement. 12 vehicles destroyed or combat ineffective. 14 survivors from 63 personnel. 1 bridge approach denied for an operationally significant period. And, perhaps most importantly, 1 demonstrated proof of concept that will reshape Russian tactical planning for every subsequent river crossing operation in this conflict. 59 killed or captured. 0 strategic gain. 1 targeting package expended. The ratio is not coincidental. It is the arithmetic of integrated warfare, where the defender who controls the ISR picture and the targeting cycle can impose asymmetric loss ratios that make offensive maneuver progressively unsustainable. This fictional scenario asks a real question, one that military planners on every side of every potential conflict are wrestling with right now. If the kill chain can be compressed to 6 minutes, if precision fires can eliminate a 60-vehicle column in 60 seconds, if electronic warfare can no longer guarantee a window of invulnerability, what does armored maneuver warfare even look like in this environment? The answer, being written in real conflicts around the world, not just this one, is that it looks fundamentally different from anything we have planned for. It demands dispersion, deception, and a complete rethinking of the relationship between speed and survivability. The bridge is still burning. The lesson is still being written. What does this scenario change about how you think about modern armored warfare? Drop your analysis in the comments below. I want to know which tactical decision you think was the most critical: the Russian column's movement timing or the Ukrainian fire mission authorization. For more in-depth military analysis and hypothetical scenarios like this one, subscribe now and join a community that takes this seriously.